Today is April 4th, 2014, which marks the 10-year anniversary for the famous firefight for the CPA compound in Najaf, Iraq. Previous to this, I spent over a decade in the Force Reconnaissance community of the United States Marine Corps. After combat operations in Iraq and West Africa, I wanted to try my hand in the reserve side and private military contracting, where I was asked to be on Ambassador Paul Bremer's protective security detail in Baghdad, Iraq. This was a pretty big honor for me, considering that Ambassador Paul Bremer was the most high-threat principal in all PSD history, even over any U.S. president. Once I got to Baghdad, I was on the daily detail for the ambassador. And as a former Force Reconnaissance Marine and very experienced with camera systems, I was asked to go to the advanced team to do aerial site surveys and data collection on the MD-530 helicopters. Due to sectarian violence in the country, tensions were very high in the CPA in Baghdad, because the country was starting to erupt. And 4 days prior to the Najaf battle, 4 of our Blackwater contractors were ambushed and killed in Fallujah, and then hung from the bridge as a message to coalition and everyone to stay out of the area. During the first week of April in 2004, Muqtada al-Sadr ordered his mighty army to take back the most holy city in Iraq, Najaf. Back in Baghdad, where I was on office watch with the ambassador, I had the opportunity to witness the tensions and communications going back and forth between the CPA staff and the commanding generals, and what I believe was a miscommunication or a lack thereof between the city of Najaf, where the firefights were happening, and the decision-making process in Baghdad. Due to the lack of the military responding to the actions in Najaf, Ambassador Paul Bremer was forced to make a critical decision, and that was to activate the Blackwater air teams to fly in by any means necessary to get our people out. There was a few things that stuck out to me as after actions for myself for those events. Not so much the combat itself. We had all seen a lot of combat actions up until this point in our careers, but the people is what really stood out. The actions of the people that came together to do what most people would consider extraordinary results was just another day of combat for us, but it was the actual actions of those individuals that increased our survivability that day. Actions like that of Corporal Young, a 25-year-old Marine that was a defense messaging systems administrator. That wasn't a gunfighter, but he turned into a gunfighter really quick that day on that rooftop, working hand in hand with contractors, evacuating wounded, running multiple trips up 4 flights of stairs with ammunition and bringing wounded down to the basement, and then getting shot himself. Actions that earned him the Bronze Star with Valor, which most people think should be a Silver Star. And then actions of people like Steve Chilton, Hacksaw, who had good command and control that day, who also made the decision to evacuate Corporal Young when the United States military denied all the medevacs. Upon that time, when Steve said, it's time to get this guy out of there, of course, me being a former Marine, I rogered up, strapped Corporal Young into the co-pilot seat of the Little Bird, and told Steve that I'd run home with him to Baghdad and drop Corporal Young off at the CAS. And this was a critical decision because we always flew with 2 pilots, because if one pilot was hit, the other pilot could take control. In this case, it was very dangerous, but we needed to keep as many people on the ground in Najaf as possible and still try to find a solution to medevac people. So me and Steve jumped in a bird, flew out as fast as we could, did the trip back, dropped Corporal Young off at the CAS. I remember hitting him on the chest and saying, hey man, you're good. Flew back over to the pad, collected as much ammunition and other ordnance as we could, and flew straight back down into Najaf by ourselves, just me and Steve. We landed in the Corps yard and went right back to the rooftop on the sniper rifle. You know, as I look back over the last 10 years, I think the 2 big takeaways for me as far as what maybe I can help with a knowledge transfer here for people watching this is not everything goes as planned. Even though you can plan it as we did. You know, we had our mission planning in Baghdad, we had mission planning in Babylon, we went in, we continually did new planning as we were there on the site. And of course, nothing ever went as planned. People were shot, people were killed. You know, we didn't have medevacs. We didn't have the close air support that we wanted to. So we had to come up and critically problem solve under worst case scenario. One of the big things that bothered me was not knowing my surroundings, the indigenous people, the Mahdi army, the Muqtada al-Sadr, his motivations, his intentions. We didn't study that stuff. It wasn't our job to do that. We weren't S2 people, and I wish I would have. I wish I would have understood who those people were, what their motivations were, and why I had to sit there as long as I did with a rifle and kill people. So that bothers me. And hopefully you can look back on anything you've done in life and pull out the little things that you could have done better. And that's where I always talk about failure points. And I think that was a big failure point for us as an organization in combat. We could have known more. And that's kind of my law of everything, is I try to know as much about everything in life as humanly possible. I know that's almost impossible to do, but you can certainly try. And so the next time I find myself in a situation, whether I'm working in the military or law enforcement capacity, or maybe it's home defense plan, I think about it. I think about what else could I do, what else could I know to help increase our survivability. A lot of people say that luck was on our side. Well, there's of course a lot of different theories about luck out there, but I think it was good people making good decisions and acting, and just acting. And even though we didn't do everything right, at least people acted and we got out alive. One of the other takeaways that I had for myself is not knowing the weapon system the way I should have. It wasn't my primary weapon system. And the last thing I want to do, even if I'm not a sniper, maybe I just picked this gun up one day and I look through the glass, do I have an idea how to use it? What if I would have been shot? What if somebody else could have picked it up? Would they have an idea how to use it? That's a question that I always ask. And for me, even understanding a precision platform, trying to figure out my dope in combat was a serious failure point. And the last thing you want to do is try to find your dope, or understand your weapon's capability, understand what the bullet's trying to tell you in combat. And I found myself learning the hard way. Now, of course, I doped it pretty quickly. I got back on target. I did my little range cards. I talked to people. I got as much information as possible, as quickly as possible, and started to be effective. But it took me a little bit to get there. And if it was maybe a little bit closer firefight, things could have been much, much different. So I always looking back on things that, even though we kind of high-fived at the end of the day and said, hey, everybody got out alive for the most part, but we still screwed up. And failure points are important. And I think by understanding those failure points, we can succeed. Jesus Christ, it's like a fucking turkey shoot.
They're taking cover. Okay, there's one, looks like he's got an RPG. You see him?
Yeah, I got him.
I don't see it.
It's a claw, right?
Yeah. That's return fire coming back at us.
Yeah, they're shooting back. Hey Eric, you got comm? Do you have comm?
Down. Covering. Up. Okay. Does anybody need ammo or anything? Not yet. It's gonna be a long fucking day again.
444, 10 years later, guys, wherever you are out there, it was an honor to be on the rooftop that day with you guys. I wouldn't have rather been with anybody else. To everybody that was involved, I mean, hell, I can't even name everybody's name, but I'll try. Steve, Frank, Dave, all the guys I flew in with, Mark, NSYNC, Carmine, Ben, Isaiah, White Boy, team in Najaf, everyone down there, everybody in Baghdad, all the Marines from Corporal Young and your guys on the roof that day, and your actions, the Anglico guys that came in, thanks for the support. Man, again, I can't name everyone, but each and every one of you guys, man, awesome job, and again, proud to be with you. Oh, even the chick on the roof that was running around yelling, "What are you shooting at? What are you shooting at?" Like I told you on the roof that day, shut the fuck up. Everyone else, guys, stay sharp, be safe out there. Travis Staley, thanks for joining me.